Assalamu alaikum and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us today. I would like to welcome our guest for today's session, the Honorable Federal Minister for Climate Change, Mr. Malik Amin Aslam. Yesterday, we hosted the Honorable President, Dr. Arif Alvi at the NIC. Today, we have the Honorable Minister with us today. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank the government and acknowledge their efforts in supporting the startup ecosystem in the country. Today's session for Gurus at NIC is about green transformation and what policy initiatives are imperative for a sustainable future. Before we take a deep dive into today's session, I would like to take a quick recap of a few initiatives the NIC has been taking in this regard. A few days back, we had a panel discussion on saving the planet with subject matter experts, with activists. And I feel that the key takeaway from that session was that the time to act is now, if we are to save the planet for our future generations. Now, what does this require? This requires a very multi-dimensional approach. The first dimension, of course, which is very important, is the law enforcement and the policy framework, which we'll be talking about more in detail in today's session. Another very important dimension is about individual behavior and what we can do at an individual level to basically drive that behavioral change that can lead to a more sustainable future. Another equally important dimension is the role of collaboration. And this is where public-private partnerships come into play. And I'm very pleased to share with the audience that one such partnership was materialized yesterday at the NIC when we signed an MOU between Team Up, Coca-Cola, and CDA to make the first ever plastic road in the country. So we are very excited for this project. We are initially doing a proof of concept. This is going to be a 1 kilometer road patch in the Islamabad capital territory, which is going to be made out of plastic waste. And we are hopeful that once we are able to do this successfully, we'll be able to replicate this in other parts of the country. We also know that the government is actively taking a lot of initiatives moving towards, a sustainable future. Some of these include the plastic bag ban, the 10 billion tree tsunami, the electric vehicle policies, and much more. So to talk more about these initiatives and others and what policy frameworks are being put in place and what is the future roadmap, we have with us the Honorable Federal Minister for Climate Change, Mr. Malik Amin Aslam. Mr. Malik is also serving as the elected Global Vice President of the IUCN and has been previously chairing the Green Growth Initiative for KPK Pakistan. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm sure you have a lot of interesting insights to share with our audience. Without any further delay, I'm going to hand over the floor to Zishan. Zishan is our program manager at the NIC and he will be moderating today's session. So over to you, Zishan.
Thank you, Asra. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Bahut shukriya, Minister Saab, for joining us here today. Just before I start, I'll just give a very brief intro of National Incubation Center for those of you who don't know what is National Incubation Center. National Incubation Center is a public-private partnership between Ministry of IT, Ignite, Jazz, and Team Up. So we are Pakistan's premier incubation center, and we consider ourselves as a hub for innovation. And we believe that innovation can solve a lot of problems. Climate change mitigation is one of them. There are various startups in various of our programs who've been trying to solve that problem through their ideas, and we've helped them scale up their solutions over here as well. So without further ado, I would now move to Minister Saab, and we would like to learn from Minister Saab how his journey has been like and what are the initiatives that government has been taking to mitigate the climate change. So Minister Saab, when I was going through your profile, I figured that you've been advocating climate change or environment change since 1992, 93, early 90s for that matter. So during that time, right now it's a buzzword, right? A lot of people are talking about it. A lot of conversations happening about climate change mitigation. But during that time, not a lot of people were talking about that. So what drove you? What was the motivating factor back then? Which which prompted you to take up this matter?
Thank you very much, and Assalamu alaikum, everybody. First of all, let me just congratulate you on this very nice facility that I've seen of the National Incubation Center. I think it's a place where ideas are born and where ideas are nurtured. It's a place for young people to be actually encouraged on their ideas. And before I start on the answer, I just wanted to mention that I was in Karachi about a year and a half back, and I visited a similar place, and I met somebody who had come from outside, one of the venture capitalists who wanted to invest in ideas in the world. And he said something very interesting, which has stayed with me. And he said that, you know, we roam all the world to look for new ideas. And we found out that the game of ideas is getting stagnant all over the world, except for Pakistan. And he said that, you know, in Pakistan, we realized that, you know, the young people over here is the real future, and they've got some really amazing ideas. So if you could capture it and nurture it, it could really take Pakistan into the future in a very positive manner. So I was very encouraged to see, you know, the young people and the facility you have provided through the government over here. And, you know, it just shows that, you know, incubation and then the startups is doing very well in Pakistan. Over the last year, we've seen a remarkable change. So the Ministry of IT is also to be commended for that. Coming back to your question, climate change is certainly an idea, you know, whose time has now come. But it was an idea which was on the fringes in the early 90s. And I remember at that time, I just finished my engineering degree, and I was working for the government actually in the power sector. And over there, when I used to see the documents, I realized that, you know, in Pakistan, there's very little understanding of the environmental issue, which is suddenly becoming very big. So that's when I decided to actually shift my whole career and my academic career. And I had a degree in MBA in finance and a degree in engineering. And I then did another master's in environmental management. And that's where I really learned about the environmental issues, how you're going to manage it, and the challenges that are being faced, because it is something which does not recognize man-made boundaries. It's one of those things that you cannot just put a lid on and say that, you know, this is the end of Pakistan, so, you know, I don't care what happens in China or India or Afghanistan. This is something which connects people and which shows that, you know, we as humans are living on what they call a ship, which is Earth, and we share all the resources, and we also share the consequences of overuse of the resources. So it's you know, the climate change is one of the offshoots of that connectedness, but it also shows that if we are pushing the thresholds on nature, what is going to happen? We have seen in the last year, you know, the whole world get jolted by the COVID-19 crisis. Now, if you look at the COVID-19 crisis, at the base of it is the fact that humans push their way into animal territory. I mean, Allah Ta'ala has made this world not just for humans. We are just one of the entities on the face of this earth. There are other species who are going to survive no matter what we do, because that's the way the world is. But we pushed our way into animal territory, and we got a disease which was basically an animal disease transferred to humans. It's a zoonotic disease. And now the whole world is facing the consequences. So it has shown to the world, actually shocked the world, and shown it that, you know, if you push the thresholds on nature, nature will react. And when nature reacts, humans cannot cope with the reaction. So climate change is another such reaction. You know, it is a reaction of nature, because humans since the 1960s have been throwing out greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. The atmosphere that we have above us is a common resource. It does not recognize, as I said, man-made boundaries. And we have pushed the threshold of its capacity to absorb gases. We have now pushed too many gases in the atmosphere. And that's why this global warming or climate change is occurring. And we are now reaching a tipping point. And that is very dangerous, because the recent report that was released by 15,000 scientists from across the world. That report shows that we are at a tipping point on climate change. Now, tipping point means that once you go over it, you do not know what are the consequences. Nobody can predict those consequences. And some of them may be irreversible. So you may never be able to get back to the same position as you are today. So that's why the world is very alarmed. The UN Secretary General called that report a red warning for the world. And even yesterday, I was with our Prime Minister and we had this leaders summit in which 35 head of states were sitting with their heads down to understand how we are going to cope with this. And our Prime Minister also made a very bold statement over there. And he said that, Pakistan is less than 1% of the global emissions. We are not a contributor. So this problem is not because of Pakistan. And no matter what we do over here, the problem is not going to be solved just by Pakistan. It has to be solved, as it was said at the start, with partnerships and with collaboration between private sector, public sector, governments. So it's a huge issue. It's an issue which is really an issue, probably the biggest challenge that humanity is facing today. So we're all bracing up for it. Pakistan is trying to do much more than its part. We are a very blessed country. Firstly, because I said because our youth is so talented and they've got so many ideas. But secondly, because of nature, we are a country which is got a very unique ecosystem. We go down from the second highest point in the world, which is K2, to sea level in about 2,000 kilometers, and that because of that we are almost like living on a slide. So we've got the second highest point, and then we've got sea level, and we've got, because of that, 12 different ecological zones present in Pakistan. So that allows us to grow anything which can be grown anywhere else in the world can also be done in Pakistan. So that gives us a very good opportunity, but also is now creating a risk because of climate change. Because at the top of this this slide, we have the third highest, what is called the third pole of the world, the Himalayan glaciers. They sit on the top of this slide, if you may call it, and they are melting now. They are melting because of climate change, and when they melt, they affect the whole Indus Basin, the Indus River system, and now we have the 230 million people who live around it are all affected by that. So that's the challenge we face, and our ministry, our government, led by our Prime Minister, who is really I would say, a green Prime Minister, and he's been now being viewed in the world as a green leader, is really doing a lot. And again, what was said at the start was that the world is saying that we should start acting now. Now, why Pakistan is different is that we've already started acting now. I mean, we are doing our action before we speak, and that is rare in the world community. People make a lot of plans, make big announcements, and then they start actions. In Pakistan, we have started acting before we started speaking. So I think that's the big part we are playing on climate change.
Certainly, it's quite visible that we've been, over the last few years, we've been very proactive, when it comes to climate change mitigation, which is evident by the fact that, we were a few years back, or I think last year we were number 5 in climate change vulnerability index. Now we've improved, and we've moved to 8. So that means the situation has certainly improved, right? So what initiatives or what actions by the government in particular do you think that led to this improvement? Please share with us.
Firstly, I think that improvement is something which has happened because of the steps that we have taken, but that is something which is not in our control. Climate change is not in Pakistan's control. Climate change is happening across the world. We happen to be a country because, as I said, of our geography and our topography. We are a country which is very seriously affected by climate change. We have been on the top 10 list for 10 straight years. So this year there was a special category done for only 3 countries, which are called continuously impacted countries. So these are the 3 countries, which include Pakistan, Haiti, and Philippines, which have been on the top 10 list for 10 years continuously. Neither of the three is a contributor to climate change. So that's called climate injustice, that you are not contributing to a problem, but you are facing the consequences. But having said that, we cannot run away from it. We cannot run away from Pakistan. We have to live here, and we have to make sure that we learn to live with the consequences of climate change. Now, having said that, there are two parts of the whole issue in terms of what you can do. One is on the energy side, and the other one is on the forestry side. On the energy side, Pakistan has made a very bold choice and a very clear choice. And that is that we want to move towards renewable energy as being, and clean energy being one of our main sources of power in the years to come. Our previous governments had started putting us on a coal pathway, and especially on an imported coal pathway, which I thought was a very criminal thing to do, because if you're not using your own coal and you have other fuel sources to choose from, why choose imported coal over all the other sources? And then set up plants in the prime agriculture heartland of Pakistan. The Sahiwal coal power plant has been set up in the middle of the agriculture heartland of Pakistan, and it is based on imported coal. This coal is not coming from Sahiwal. It is coming from Indonesia and Malaysia, transfers all the way from Karachi to Sahiwal, and then burns in Sahiwal. So the consequences are being borne in the agriculture heartland of Pakistan. So we as a government shifted away from that policy. Our Prime Minister announced that we want to convert to 60% clean energy by 2030. And again, they were not just words. We started acting upon it. There were about 20, when we came to power, there were 2,400 megawatts of imported coal projects which were ready to be started. We shelved those projects. One was in Muzaffargarh, the other one was in Rahim Yar Khan. And instead, we moved to 3,700 megawatts of clean, carbon-free hydropower. That was started. This was under the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor CPEC projects. And yesterday, I was very pleased to hear the Chinese premier make a very bold announcement. And he said that China is, after yesterday, not going to invest in any coal project in any other country outside of China. So in effect, Pakistan's announcement that it is moving away from coal was aligned with China's vision, which it has put forward yesterday. So that is one of our main focuses. The other one is that electric vehicles. When we came to power, there was no policy on electric vehicles. There was no move to shift towards electric vehicles. We came out with a policy in our ministry, and now we have a clear policy, and we've got the EVs coming in. That is an area where a lot of new ideas are going to take place. It's a transition which is happening all over the world. A lot of countries have announced between 2025 and 2030, they're going to shift all their transport to EVs. In Pakistan, we have announced that we are going to shift 30% of our transport to EVs by 2030. But that is one of the areas where new ideas, new technologies, new solutions are required, especially on the storage side. So that's a big challenge and a big opportunity also for Pakistan. And this is an area where a lot of green jobs are going to come up in the near future. So we have announced the EV policy. We have announced the clean energy policy on the energy side. So that is showing for Pakistan that we are not part of the problem on climate change globally, but we also are showing that we want to be a part of the solution on climate change. We don't want to add to the problem on climate change. So that's a very bold move that we've done. The other one is on the forestry side, where I said we are acting upon what is required. We are putting our trust in nature, and we are investing in nature. So the 10 billion tree tsunami project, which the first part was the billion tree tsunami of KP province, which we successfully achieved in 2018, and since 2014 we have now planted 2.5 billion trees in Pakistan, and that is a very big global achievement. It is something which is globally recognized. which is recorded with total transparency, and which is something that is giving Pakistan a very positive name in the environmental field all over the world. And it is also sequestering carbon. So it takes out the gases that I talked about. It takes the gases out of the atmosphere because trees absorb carbon dioxide and give out oxygen. So that's a very big nature-based solution we are doing. Secondly, during the COVID time, we had a problem that we were out of jobs for a lot of the people in the urban areas. And at the same time, a migration was occurring from the urban towards the rural areas. So, we looked at different country models, and one of the things we found out was that in the US in 1930s, when the US had gone into an economic depression, their president, which was Roosevelt at that time, started a project of nature corps. And these nature corps were young people who were hired to, go out into nature and start developing national parks. So we followed that same model. And in the COVID era, we have announced 15 new national parks in Pakistan. And now we are starting a new national park service, which is going to employ about 5,000 young people who are going to be nature guardians. So they will have nature protection as well as green jobs with them. So that's the second part. This is also a solution to climate change because these wilderness areas absorb carbon dioxide again. The third solution we are employing is again a nature-based solution. It is called Recharge Pakistan. It's a multi-million-dollar project, which is about to start next month. We are starting at 3 sites. But this is a solution that is saying that we have a crisis in Pakistan every year that when the glaciers melt, we have a 100-day period in which the same 100 days, which is June, July, August, we have the glaciers melting and the monsoon coming in from the south. And both of them meet to create a lot of water in Pakistan. And then what happens is that this huge mass of water just flows through Pakistan and we flush it into the Arabian Sea. And after that, we say we are now deficient in water. So that is the dilemma of Pakistan, that we have this huge mass of water. We don't store it. Our storage percent is 9%, which means that if we get 100 liters of water, we store only 9 liters out of it. The world average is 40 liters. So we are obviously not using our resource properly. So one of the solutions we have done is that on the left and right bank of the river Indus, we have about 15 different wetland sites. And these wetlands are also degrading. So we had, after the 2010 and 11 floods, we had a report done, and this report suggested that we could use the flood water, which is about 35 to 40 million acre feet, and that's about 6 times the size of Tarbela's water reservoir. That water can be used. If we could divert it into those wetlands, it will restore the wetlands, also recharge the groundwater aquifer, and turn a crisis into an opportunity for Pakistan. So we are doing that. We are going to start with 3 sites next month. We have an outlay of about $2 billion rupees for that. And then we are going to go into the other sites also. So next month, we're going to start with the Manchar Lake in Sindh, DI Khan, where we have the hill torrents, and Tausa, which is in Punjab. And these are also going to create jobs for the people. So they will create jobs, we will invest in nature, and nature will help us fight climate change. So these are the solutions that we have in front of us. One more thing I would like to talk about is that in Pakistan, one of the biggest sectors that gets affected by climate change is agriculture. And what happens is that when you have too much water or too less water or rains at the wrong time, the agriculturist suffers. And yet we have not been able to convey the right information to our farmers at the right time for him to take the right decisions, which can offset this. So for that, we are starting a project on climate smart agriculture. We've already got a $40 million financing for it from the Green Carbon Fund. And that is going to start in 8 districts of Pakistan. 5 in Punjab and 3 in Sindh. And it is going to set up technology-based solutions to ensure that our farmers get the right information at the right time. And I think that's also a very big area in which incubation and startups can help us. And I visited, I think it was from your incubation center, there was a function at Marriott, and a lot of young people had ideas on the agriculture side, how to make farmers get the information at the right time, how to link up weather systems with the farm management systems in different parts. So that's also happening. That's also climate change. Again, jobs will be created, and we hope that this will help us fight climate change.
Thank you, sir. Creation of jobs is certainly something that, it's the mandate of National Incubation Center is. So, it's certainly which is of our interest, which is of course, nation's interest. And one of the things that you mentioned about the billion tree tsunami is, it created a lot of jobs. If I'm not wrong, the number is more than 80,000 plus. So what we would like to learn from you is that how does that work? How does that project create jobs? And with billion tree tsunami, I'm sure we all know about that. We've heard a lot about it. There's a lot of criticism as well. We heard all kind of positive, negative, all kind of things, because awareness wasn't there back then. It wasn't, and when it comes to awareness, it isn't yet. We're not yet there. So we would like to know how the story of billion tree tsunami, how it started, and how it helped in creating jobs. What the sort of impact that it has had so far, and the image that, the positive image that it has created for Pakistan all over the world.
Yeah, well, on, billion tree tsunami is a very interesting story, that this is one of the, our Prime Minister is a big dreamer. This is one of his big dreams. And I remember that in 2014, when we had not yet formed the government in KP province. But he called me and he said that I had developed a green agenda for PTI. So this was the first political party that actually developed a green agenda. But then our Prime Minister, who was at that time the chairman of the party, he called me and he said that, well, you developed a green agenda. Now we are in power, so let's start implementing it. That was a change for me. I have been in politics before also. And I realized that, we have a leader who really means business, because usually parties create manifestos and then as soon as they come to power, they go into the dustbin. You don't see what we promised and then you wait for the next election. But this was different. He wanted to implement what we had promised in our manifesto. So we started setting out, we went to KP, we started seeing what the problems are over there. One of the main problems over there was deforestation, and yet forestry was also one of the main revenue earners for the province. Their forest rate had been going down ever since Pakistan was formed, and timber mafia was the big business to do in KP. So those were the odds. We set up a task force, and then we said that, let's start to see how, if we can reverse that deforestation, and then create a project for planting trees around it. And we set a target for ourselves, and then we went to the chairman of the party, and I told him that, we can probably, the department says they can do 40-50 crore trees and in 5 years. And that is also if you push them a lot. But then he said, well, you need to dream big, and don't worry about the money, and you should set a billion tree target. So that's how the name, and at that time, you must have remembered that PTI, one of the slogans of PTI was that tsunami aa rahi hai. So this was, we tagged it with the tsunami. A lot of people criticized at that time that, tsunami is a destructive thing. But we thought, this is something which is going to be constructive. And, it's got such a lot of traction, this billion tree tsunami name, that a lot of countries are now following it. I know in New Zealand is not a very popular country in Pakistan right now, but New Zealand, the UK government, Canadian government, They have, even the US government have announced billion tree project. And the Saudi government, of course, has announced a 10 billion tree project. They have all taken the name from our project. So it shows that the name had attraction. It was a big dream and a big ask. Then we started working on it, and the model developed. It was one of the projects which had, at the end there were 4 success factors. The first one was that it was a project which was designed with a lot of flexibility. So when we started planning it, we thought that we would go out and plant the billion trees. But then we realized that the best way to plant trees is for nature to plant it for you. So you don't actually go and plant trees, you just protect the wilderness areas which are conducive to planting trees, and nature does its own planting. But for that, you have to create a system of community-based protection. And that is what we did. We involved the communities in it. They got jobs as protectors of forest. We withdrew the forest guards, and instead we told the communities to set up, select their own forest guards, and we were paying them, 15 to 18,000 rupees a month, and they became our Nigeban and the guards who were on the forest, and they really protected the forest. They fought the timber mafias. We also had to push back the timber mafia in KP province, and that was not easy. It required total political commitment, and it required zero tolerance for any wrongdoing. And that is what happened. The Prime Minister was totally behind this project. The Chief Minister Khattak Sahab at that time was totally behind it. And there were 2 or 3 incidents at the start of it when we realized trees had been cut. There was a mafia, the forest was involved. In one case, there was a tweet. Somebody sent me a tweet and he said that trees are cut. It was winters at that time. It was snowed, and the trees had been cut somewhere in the north of Malakand. And I sent it to the secretary, showed it to the chairman, and he said, get it checked. When I got it checked, he said, no, these are old trees and all that. But that person again tweeted the second day, and he sent me again a tweet saying that these are fresh cut trees, and I'm standing here. So when I sent him that, the Prime Minister at that time called the Chief Minister, told him to take out his helicopter and said, let's go. And we went there and the trees were cut. On that day, right from the DFO to the Chief Conservator, the whole department was sacked in one day. But it sent a message that government is serious, zero tolerance to corruption and to timber mafia. And after that, the timber mafia retreated. The department understood that if they are to survive in that government, they are going to do it by planting trees, not by cutting trees. So that project then started doing very well. The third one is the question you asked about the controversy that our opposition always says that we don't have a billion trees. Transparency came to this project because this was the first ADB project that actually got a third-party independent assessment done. We used to do a performance audit, not by the government. The government do their performance audit for all the projects. But in this case, we went out and we hired a third independent party, which was WWF. So they used to do the performance audit for this project. And this performance audit was what gave it credibility. That is why the whole world believes in the project, because WWF has got thick audit reports of performance saying that this is the survival rate, this is where the trees have been planted, this is what the situation is over here, and that is a real clear sign that it is a totally transparent project. The other indicator I will tell you is that this project was allocated a budget of 22 billion rupees. About government projects, they start at 22 billion and they end at 220 billion. But this was a project that started at 22 billion, ended at 14 billion. The only project of ADP government financing that gave back 8 billion to the government, saying that we have achieved that target. If you were to, indulge in corruption, this would never have happened. So it's a very clear project, which has brought a lot of good name to Pakistan. The last success factor was that there were 3 stakeholders who were critical to the success. One was the young people. We employed a lot of young people in the project. 85,000 jobs have been given under the 10 billion tree project so far. In the first billion, we gave 5 lakh jobs, 500,000 jobs. And the jobs came for people who were primarily growing nurseries, because we needed the saplings before we could start the planting. It had to be done 10, 15 times over. So we created a unit called it the Youth Nursery Program. So this was about, you could grow about 50,000 plants, and the government did a buyback after 1 year if the plant was of a certain size. You would buy it back at a certain price. And in that price, we had calculated labor costs and the maintenance cost. So if you're growing it in your own backyard, the labor cost would be zero, the maintenance cost would be minimal. So you would save that cost. So we calculated that at that buyback price, the person would be saving about 10 to 15,000 rupees a month if he was to grow a nursery. So a lot of these youth nurseries mushroomed. Women were critical stakeholders. They grew a lot of our nurseries, and they were most successful in the nursery program. Their nurseries were the best nurseries for us because they could take care of the plants and they took a lot of care in that. And the third, obviously, were the local communities who we had to get on board. So all of these factors combined to make the project a success. When we started the 10 billion tree program, it was a bigger challenge because now it was not just the KP province. Now we had to deal with, Punjab, GB, AJK, Balochistan, and Sindh, where we have an opposition government over there. But I'm glad to say that this is the only project which is not politically divisive. Sindh came on board. They are doing very well on the mangrove plantations. I still remember that when I went to the Prime Minister, because the model that we are using is that 50% of the funding is given by the federal government, 50% of matched funding is given by the provincial government. The planning for the project is done by the province. So we get the plans and we then finalize it, give 50% funding, and then we monitor the results. And the implementation is done by the province. So that's the model. So when it came to Sindh, I discussed it with our Prime Minister and told him that, obviously if they come on board, they will also take the political credit for it. And he's told me very straight that I don't care about political credit. As long as they are planting trees and you can monitor it, we would like them to be on board. So they came on board, and today Pakistan is the only country in the world which has an expanding mangrove cover. And we are adding another 1 billion mangroves to it in the south. So it's a big success story, which is now seen as a nature-based solution to climate change, not just in Pakistan, but all over the world.
Great, indeed. I think a couple of what do I call it? Common things between National Incubation Center and Billion Tree Tsunami is we both didn't end up spending the amount that was initially budgeted. and two disruption, because people, as you mentioned, that people think it's deconstructive, but it's actually disruptive, right? We also, we also advocate disruption. So that's another common that we have. So sir, we are doing stories here, right? And I think another story which is worth telling, which is worth hearing from you, is when we first imposed the ban on plastic bags in federal, there was huge hue and cry about that as well, because again, as I mentioned, we are not here and we are not there yet in terms of awareness. So I'm sure there were a lot of challenges on the administrative front in imposing that ban as well. So tell us about it, and tell us the story. How. So I'm going to come to that.
So I think the plastic ban is another good story. See, the statistics are that in 1999, Pakistan was producing and using about 2 crore shopper plastic bags. In 2019, it had gone up from 2 crore to 5 billion 5 billion plastic shopper bags that were being made and then thrown. So they were not going anywhere. They were either going into the fields or going into waterways and clogging our systems. And this was a menace that was a menace for all of Pakistan, especially urban areas, rural areas. Everywhere, people were I mean, really sick of the plastic shopper bag. So when we came to power, we immediately looked at some models, international models, and we found two countries, Rwanda and Kenya, who had successfully carried out a ban on plastic bags. And we were told, over here, whenever we used to discuss it, we were told that there's a lot of employment attached to the industry which produces the bags. And if you ban it in one go, it will be very disruptive. So you need to transition it. But the lesson we learned from the global experiences was that you have to guillotine it. You have to set a date and then just say there is no plastic bag after this. There is no concept of a transition, because that never works. It always makes a comeback. Unfortunately, we guillotined it. We set out a tough legislation. We had a very strong awareness campaign, which was very successful, especially for Islamabad, because 80% of the shops started converting to other forms of bags. But then COVID came in. And when COVID came in, there was a resurgence globally of single-use items. And plastic being the most common one, single-use items, because people would use it and then, use the either the solution and then not use it again. So the single-use comeback, because of that, our momentum was broken on the plastic ban issue. But having again said that, what it has done is that it has catalyzed, like the NIC catalyst. It has catalyzed legislation in KP province, in Sindh province, in Balochistan, and the Punjab one is already gone through cabinet and it will go to the parliament very soon. So it catalyzed that movement that no to plastics. And if you go across Pakistan today, you will realize, and I was talking to the Secretary Saab was sitting here, the RPO of Sargodha yesterday. And he said two things to me which were very encouraging for me. He said that, there are two things. He said, I realized that one, there's a heightened awareness to planting trees across Pakistan. Because he said, wherever I go, the first thing to do is ask me to plant a tree. So there is people have started owning up to it, the behavior change that we talked about. And the second thing he said was that he says that there is a shift away from plastic bags. People are moving towards the other bag, which is slightly woven material and which is recyclable. And that is positive, because I think the signal that we got sent through that campaign was that if not today, tomorrow, plastic is going to finish. The shopper bag is going to finish. So the quicker you go on to the alternative, the better it is going to be. So I think that's been positive. We are going to start the momentum for that. We have 3 different penalties over there. One is on the producer, the other one is on the retailer, and the third one is on the user. All 3 levels of penalties are in place. It is a law, and we are going to enforce the law. So for those who haven't shifted, I would recommend them strongly to shift. As you said, it is a disruptive thing, like the tree planting in Pakistan is a disruptive thing. The third big disruption is that we've caused is the electric vehicles. That was a big disruption in the industry, and the industry took a lot of time to digest it. There was a lot of opposition because we are used to our old ways of selling carbon combustion cars. But we are moving in the right direction, and I think once Pakistan, we are going to go towards an inflection point on the EV, like CNG. And I think once we reach that, we will have a exponential growth, because it's a win-win technology. It is cheaper to run. 60% of your costs go down. It is good for the environment. It is good for the consumer. So lots of goods over there, and let's see how we move forward on that.
Great. Please.
That's very good, and I think that's the sort of transition that we need to happen all over Pakistan.
A couple of questions before I, pass on the mic to the audience for the questions as well. Yesterday, we had an MOU signing ceremony over here. Asra, my colleague, mentioned about it as well, where we, Coca-Cola and CDA, we came together and we decided that we're going to build a road out of plastic waste material. Like, so it's going to be a pilot project, and inshallah, we're going to scale it later on as well. So this is just one positive thing done with respect to corporate I'm talking about. So what do you think, in your opinion, corporates or businesses need to do to A, create awareness, and B, take some practical steps as well in terms of, because this is our collective responsibility, right? So what do you think needs to be done on that front?
Well, I think corporates need to understand that the world is changing, and they need to change with it. If they don't change with it, they'll be like dinosaurs will be left behind. This is a very rapidly changing world, and the environment the issues of the environment are the most disruptive, and they are forcibly disruptive. They're disruptive in the sense that they're not giving you a choice anymore. So I think climate change is one of those big disruptions. So corporations and corporate entities need to be forward-looking and go into things like this. We have had some positive. One of the big positives that we've had in Pakistan is that everybody in the world is now talking about going to net zero. Net zero is when, in your field of operation, as a country or as an entity, you can match up your emissions with your absorptions so that it's net zero. So we have in Pakistan the first developing country where 26 companies are going to sign up to go to net zero on their own without government telling them to do that. And that is going to be a bottoms up, mainly textile industries are signing up for that. So that is going to be a very big, inshallah, announcement. And of course, other companies like the one you mentioned, which is doing the plastic road, is very good. I think that's the sort of thing that they need to be doing. And they need to think about the world that they make a profit out of. If that world does not remain on a profitable trajectory, then they'll also not remain on the profitable trajectory. So I think they need to invest in nature. They need to invest in climate mitigation activities, and that's what their CSR funds should be spent on.
So this is about corporates, but at individual levels, as I mentioned, this is a collective responsibility, right? So what is your message going to be to all the individuals who are listening to us, and what is our responsibility, because we need to bring ownership and to solve this crisis, to solve this problem, right? There has to be ownership by companies, individuals, and everyone. So what is that we all need to do in our individual capacity? What do you think?
Well, I think in the individual capacity, when you talk about a global carbon footprint, that is consists of country carbon footprints, which includes individual carbon footprints. So we can reduce our individual carbon footprints in different ways. The easiest one and the most effective one is to go out and plant a tree and take care of it. It's got multiple benefits. It absorbs carbon dioxide. It is good for the environment, good for pollution reduction. It is also Sadaqah Jariyah. It's for us, it is in Islam, our Prophet, peace be upon him, also told us that we should plant the tree. Even if we have a tree in our hand and doomsdays to come, we should plant the tree first. So I think that's the spirit, and as I said, that's the easiest thing to do, but it is the most effective one for individual purposes. Otherwise, I think other than that, lights, we should try to use as little light as possible. We should try to focus on conserving water, which is again an issue for Pakistan. So all these things are what we can do at an individual level.
Zunaira, do we have any questions from the audience?
Thank you for your time, sir. We have questions from our online audience. और अगर हमारी यहाँ पर audience के भी कोई सवाल हैं तो हम वो भी ले लेंगे. एक सवाल हमें ये आया है कि the youth has some ideas and they want to reach out to you and the ministry. Does ministry have a walk-in policy? How can they reach out to you directly or different departments in the ministry?
इसमें आप you can contact our ministry. मेरा अपना email है minister@mocc.gov.pk और हमारी वाहिद मिनिस्ट्री है मेरे ख्याल में जो कि वॉक इन पॉलिसी है. आप जब आएँ तो आपको पता दरवाज़ा खुला मिलेगा. आप आके अपना आइडिया लेकर आएँ तो इंशाल्लाह if it is a good one we will definitely support it.
ठीक है. और can we create a forum जहाँ पर overseas sustainability and environmental professionals को हम बुला सकें जो पाकिस्तान में रहते नहीं हैं but they want to work for Pakistan? तो ऐसा कोई forum हम उनको दे सकते हैं कि वो अपनी contributions हमें देते रहें environmental change के लिए?
That's a very good idea. I remember हमारी जब गवर्नमेंट फॉर्म हुई थी तो उस वक्त गवर्नमेंट लेवल पे भी हमने ये एक पूल बनाया था कि जो ओवरसीज के लोग हैं जो कि कंट्रीब्यूट कर सकते हैं. और पाकिस्तान के ओवरसीज बहुत बड़ी ताकत भी है और बहुत बड़ा रिसोर्स भी है पाकिस्तान के लिए. तो वो बनाया जाएगा लेकिन वो फिर उसको ऑर्गेनाइज शायद सही तरीके से नहीं किया गया. बट इट इज़ अ गुड आइडिया एंड आई विल थिंक अबाउट इट कि इसको कैसे हम ऑपरेशनलाइज कर सकते हैं.
और एक और इंटरेस्टिंग सवाल ये है कि सोलर एनर्जी पे काफ़ी फोकस किया जा रहा है. बहुत सारे घर हैं जिन्होंने अपने घर इलेक्ट्रिसिटी से सोलर एनर्जी पे ले आए हैं. तो गवर्नमेंट उनको इंसेंटिवाइज कैसे कर सकती है और उनको फैसिलिटेट कैसे कर सकती है कि मोस्ट ऑफ द हाउसेस वो सोलर एनर्जी पे चले जाएं फॉर इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कन्वर्जन और वो एनवायरनमेंट में अगर बेहतरी लाना चाहते हैं तो सोलर एनर्जी को इस्तेमाल करना आसान उनके लिए हो जाए.
इसमें बिल्कुल सोलर एनर्जी जो है ये फ्यूचर है और पाकिस्तान को अल्लाह ताला ने सोलर बहुत ज़्यादा पोटेंशियल दिया हुआ है. और ये जो होम सोलर है ये दिस इज़ अ ग्रोइंग इंडस्ट्री और इसके मल्टीपल फ़ायदे हैं कंज्यूमर्स को कि वो ना सिर्फ बिजली की लोड शेडिंग से आपकी बचत हो जाती है, बिजली की कीमतों से भी आपकी बचत हो जाती है और आपको एक सस्ती और पायदार बिजली मिल जाती है. इसके लिए गवर्नमेंट ने इंसेंटिव ऑलरेडी दिया हुआ है. इसका ग्रीन फाइनेंसिंग पैकेज है. आप सोलर कंपनीज बहुत सारी हैं, किसी के पास भी जाएं तो वो आपको एस्टिमेट भी दे देते हैं और साथ ग्रीन फाइनेंसिंग का पैकेज जो आई थिंक लेस देन 3% के ऊपर आपको लोन मिल जाता है घर में लगाने के लिए. लेकिन इसमें इंटरेस्टिंग ये है कि मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एनर्जी जो है वो उनके साथ बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग हमारी मिनिस्ट्री का बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग इंटरेक्शन रहता है कि जब हम उनसे कहते हैं कि हमें रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी की तरफ जाया जाए तो कहते हैं जी वो हमारे पास ज़्यादा बिजली है, आप हमारी बिजली सारी सोलर पे लग गई तो हम कहाँ से बिजली लाएंगे. जब हम उनको कहते हैं कि हम ईवी पे जा रहे हैं तो कहते हैं यार बिजली है ही नहीं, आप ईवी की बात कर रहे हैं. तो इसलिए उनके साथ हमारा झगड़ा रहता है. उनका मुझे नहीं पता बिजली है कि नहीं है, लेकिन हम दोनों चीज़ें करना चाहते हैं. हम चाहते हैं कि इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल्स भी पाकिस्तान में हों क्योंकि माहौल का फ़ायदा है और हम चाहते हैं कि सोलर भी पाकिस्तान में हो क्योंकि माहौल का फ़ायदा है.
ज़ीशान यही सवाल थे. आई लेट यू कंटिन्यू और फिर हम रैप अप कर सकते हैं.
Sir, before we wrap up, and do you have any concluding remarks or any message to our youth, to our audience?
अब मेरा concluding remark to the youth is that you should keep on dreaming. और पाकिस्तान के youth का सबसे बड़ा जो जैसे मैंने बताया कि जो सबसे बड़ा पोटेंशियल है वो यही है कि हमारे यूथ के पास आइडियाज़ हैं और हम लोग स्टैग्नेंट नहीं हैं. सोच के बड़े आइडियाज़ हमारे दिमाग में हैं. तो आप लोग अपने आइडियाज़ जनरेट करते रहें और नेशनल इंक्यूबेशन सेंटर आई थिंक दिस इज़ द राइट डायरेक्शन टू गो बिकॉज 60% हमारे मुल्क में जो लोग हैं वो 35 साल से कम उम्र के हैं और इन लोगों के पास अच्छे अच्छे आइडियाज़ हैं। और ये एक और चीज़ जो पाकिस्तानियों की बड़ी खासियत है वो है केओस मैनेजमेंट। ये दिस इज़ रियली, मैं आपको बताऊं कि आई वर्क वेरी क्लोजली विद वेरी सीनियर पीपल, स्पेशली चाइनीज़ का ये होता है कि वो दे प्लान फॉर एवरी इवेंचुअलिटी। आपने यहाँ से वहाँ तक जाना होगा ना, तो वो इसके 100 प्लान बनाएंगे कि अगर ये हो जाता है तो वो होगा, वो हो जाता है तो ये होगा, और वो सोचते हैं उस चीज़ को 100 बार, और फिर उसके बाद वो अपना कदम उठाते हैं। और वो उनको हर चीज़ का पता होता है कि आप ये चीज़ होगी तो मैंने ये करना है। लेकिन अगर कोई ऐसी चीज़ हो जाए जो कि उनके प्लान में नहीं है, वो उधर ही फ्रीज हो जाते हैं। लेकिन पाकिस्तानियों को मैंने देखा है कि वो प्लान बहुत कम करते हैं, विच इज़ नॉट गुड, बट दैट इज़ द वे वी आर, कि प्लान कम करते हैं लेकिन जब मुश्किल पड़ जाती है तो वो सबसे बेहतर परफॉर्म करते हैं, क्योंकि वो टेंशन नहीं लेते हैं। वो उस जब व्हेन chaos हैपेंस तो पाकिस्तानी सबसे बेहतर परफॉर्म कर रहा होता है। तो आई थिंक दैट इज हमारी यूथ का भी ये स्ट्रेंथ है कि हमारे मुल्क अनफॉर्चुनेटली बिकॉज ऑफ द ग्लोबल सिचुएशन वी बीन इन, वी हैव गॉन थ्रू द टेरर वॉर, वी हैव गॉन थ्रू अ लॉट ऑफ, अभी भी आप देखें तो नेबरहुड जो है हमारा वो काफ़ी वहाँ पे एडवेंचर चल रहा है इस वक्त भी। तो वो वी हैव बिकम यूज्ड टू दिस विच इज़ अ स्ट्रेंथ ऑफ पाकिस्तानी, कि हम रेजिलिएंट हो गए हैं इस चीज़ से, और हम इसको बर्दाश्त भी कर सकते हैं, और इसके होते हुए इसके बावजूद हम अपने आप को आगे लेके जा सकते हैं। तो आई थिंक ये हमारे यूथ की स्ट्रेंथ है और उसको हमें नर्चर करने की जरूरत है। और थोड़ा सा भी हमने इसको नर्चर किया, जिस तरह अभी आपने पिछले 2 सालों में देख लिया है कि ये जो इंक्यूबेशन और जो आइडियाज़ की दौड़ है उसमें पाकिस्तान बहुत आगे निकल गया दुनिया में, बहुत जल्दी। तो इसको थोड़ा सा और आप आगे लेके गए तो आई थिंक ये बहुत जिस तरह अल्लामा इकबाल ने भी कहा था कि ज़रा नम हो तो ये मिट्टी बड़ी जरखेज है सर।
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Indeed, we are a very resilient nation, and we make our way out of chaos. Even if we don't plan very well, we always find a way around that. It's been a fantastic discussion. I'm amazed. At least I'm amazed, and I'm sure you guys are as well, to learn the initiatives that Pakistani government has taken over the last few years to solve the climate crisis and to improve the climate situation in Pakistan. This is the stuff that we don't generally hear about because our focus is entirely different. As I mentioned, the awareness level is not there yet, but I think we need to be doing a lot more to create this awareness. It's each one of us responsibility. And as a matter of fact, National Incubation Center has is decided to celebrate this month as an Environment Month. We're also launching Innovation Challenge on Greener Pakistan, where we are going to invite youth to help us in crowdsourcing the solutions, affordable, scalable solutions for climate change mitigation. So that's something which is going to be announced in next few days. So please just stay tuned to the National Incubation Center social media as well. What I would like to, say in the end and wrap up the session by saying that climate change, or we all need to work toward a broader vision of, what do we call it? Plastic circular economy, or maybe more sustainable future, or innovate our way towards the more greener future. This is all of this. We all need to do. We all need to take this responsibility. We all need to take ownership. Only then we are going to go towards a sustainable living or sustainable future. It's not only government's job. It's not only corporate job. It's our job. This generation is, this generation is already done, right? So now we need to work on the mindset change or mindset shift or behavior change of the current generation, right? This is where we can make the most immediate impact. And let's all take the responsibility. Thank you all for joining today, those who are here and those who've joined us online. Thank you for time. Thank you, Minister Saab, for taking time out and sharing insights and your stories with us. We really enjoyed these stories, and we hope to keep hearing from you and keep hearing good things from the government in future as well. Thank you very much.